Hi everyone, this is Laura from Grain & Company, and today I'm here with July's Creative Maker Box. So we are going to be getting started on staining our deer head here. So what you'll need is your gloves and a foam brush, and eventually we'll need our 2-inch brush to do some painting, but for this part we will just need gloves, foam brush, and a paper towel or something to wipe off that excess stain. Before you stain on your ear tag here, there's a little charring from the engraving, so you can take your sandpaper and just give this a quick sand and just lighten up that charring. Just like that. So that's gone there. And if you want, you can do a little on the back. You're not gonna see it, so it really isn't necessary, but totally your call. So what you'll need is your stain color. And we're doing this in whole wheat. And you don't need very much. So we're gonna stain both sides on both of these pieces. So I'm gonna start in the back. That way I can leave my good side up after. And I'm just gonna stain. So I like to dip it, turn it on its side, and wipe it on. So that way it's way faster. I can control exactly where that stain is going. I always like to start in the middle and push it to the side, so that way I'm not dripping all that excess stain right from the beginning off the sides, and kind of leaves your area a bit cleaner. All right, and now just give that a wipe, and that will help blend your stain. And now we're gonna flip this over. So if you flip it, make sure that you don't have any puddles of stain there, otherwise those puddles will leave marks on the back. And we're gonna do the same thing to the front. And remember to go in the direction of the grain. So for us, it's side to side, because that's the direction it was cut in, and the lines of the shiplap match that too. Okay, oops, and then give this a wipe. And so just be careful when you get stain on your gloves that you're not handling it from the top and leaving marks. So if you can grab it from the side and then take it and let it rest somewhere so it can dry, then you can bring in your next piece here. Now I didn't pour enough stain for me, but you're gonna do the same thing on this, and you're just gonna gently wipe over top of this. You don't really want to get any stain inside there, but you won't, it won't discolor too bad if you did. If you decided you wanted to paint this, the best way to do that would be to take a baby wipe and wipe over that, so that way you don't get any paint inside there. And if you do happen to get a little stain puddle in there, just give that a wipe. All right, so that doesn't take long to do. We're gonna let that dry, and then I will come back and we will do the second part to your cow head. All right, we'll see you soon, guys. Hi guys, I'm back. Okay, so now this should be dry on all sides. So what you're gonna do is take your sandpaper and give it a sand and smooth out that texture in the back at least. Okay, now in the front, you can do the front. However, the next technique that we're doing, sometimes having a little bit of texture on the surface helps with the dry brushing, so you can decide either way. I've done it either way, so it doesn't matter if you do it or if you don't. we'll eventually sand it in the end anyways. However, you can still do this one. And if you want to distress the edges, you can just kind of pull on that while you're sanding. And do the back. This one can be left off to the side, so you won't need that one anymore. And we'll go ahead and do this one next. So what you're gonna do is grab your 2-inch brush. You're gonna need your white paint. I'm just using up a bunch here, so my container looks a little different than yours. And what you're gonna do is dip your brush. Mine was dipped way so much, so that is way more than you need. So you're gonna take a lot of that off. And then you are going to take your paper towel and you're gonna kind of blot most of that off. And so drying it off a bit so you don't have a whole lot of wet paint on there. And then with your hand moving slowly or moving across as you approach, you don't want to just start and then move. You kind of want to get your hand going so that way you don't have any stop and start marks. You'll gently wisp your brush across, and as you start to run out of paint, you can really push and feather that. So that's what you're doing to build up all of it, and you can just keep doing that. And you can even grab some of the paint from your paper towel after if you start getting a lot from there. And as you get more comfortable, you can add a little bit more paint, but you really shouldn't see any blotches of paint on there. And then you can just build up your layers. You're going to keep going back until you like what you've done. Now be careful as you go side to side. A lot of people tend to arch their brush strokes. So you can even turn it sideways if you want and do it this way. It takes a little longer, but sometimes I'll go back in there and take my brush and go this way. But I usually will do that when I hardly have any paint at all. So I'm just gonna, and don't worry about getting paint on the sides. We're actually gonna go in there and do a little paint. Okay, so this is where I'll say I don't have much paint. I'll turn it so the lines are going side to side or up and down, and then I'll come in here and I'll pull my brush across. So you can kind of do that as well. But you'll also come in here and do the side. So I really won't put, it's trying to find a good way to hold this one. So I'm just gonna come in here. So you really won't put too much extra paint on your brush. Kind of come and dip in there because it doesn't take much. And you don't want to really create a big white outline. So taking it as you have a little bit in your brush at a time usually works best for doing the edges. And I usually won't do them solid. And you can do this after you know this is really dry, but I know that this is dry because that's how little paint I'm doing. I wouldn't be going around holding this if I knew this was gonna leave some finger imprints in there. So definitely gauge how you do the sides, depending on how much you've got left to dry there. So when you do the sides, you can come in and just kind of feather every so often so you don't get a huge line and you kind of blend it in. And like I'm still not done with the front, but it's always nice to get the sides done so I can work any of that details when I keep doing more. I mean, if you do it right, you can kind of get like an outline on there that's not like super prominent, and your back's not going to stay as pretty as it was because you will get little wisps of paint in the back. But you'll just keep going around. Not sure why my foam might be a little lighter. Let's see. You guys get the light there. There we go. Okay. There. So you still see some of the black marks of the charred sides, but that's fine because that's how I want it to be. And we're just dry brushing, so we're not completely making this solid. Okay, so there's the sides done. Now I'm just going to come back in here one more time. Now you don't really use a whole lot of paint with this, so just know that the paint that you have is also going to do your Santa one that does not have a video to do that. You can come at it upside down like it's, because you'll notice that when you're doing this, you'll have a stroke that's a little stronger one way than the other. So if you keep rotating it and coming at it from all directions, it tends to be a little bit more even all the way around. All right, so I think I want a little bit more on this side. So if you don't want quite so much, you know, stain still showing through, then obviously build up your layers. You don't want to be too heavy that you're getting a lot in those grooves. You should be able to still see those shiplap lines. And if you do get some paint in there, then you can just take like a knife and then just gently clean those out like that. There you go. Okay. But I think I'm pretty much happy with this. You are going to be pretty rough with your brush, so if you have an older one, you might want to use that instead, because you'll kind of really create a feathery brush after, but you'll wash it and it should get it back into shape a little bit, but it will never fully recover. All right, so I think I'm good, because I can sit here all day and tweak this, but you just, at some point, you just gotta walk away. But the only time I'm really pushing hard is when I'm trying to work like every last bit out of that brush, and that's what gets those really nice light faint areas. But yeah, I think I'm good, because this will come in like that. Okay, so that's it. So you can continue on and do that, and then once that's dry, that's when I'm going to give it a sand and smooth out any texture, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to make a bow and put it all together. All right, we'll see you guys. Okay guys, I'm back. Mine is dry, and I'm going to try and see if we can get through the ribbon here at the store before I have to pause the camera again. What you're going to do is give this a sand. And you don't have to do it very hard, you just enough to smooth off that texture. Just like that. And if you want to distress the edges a little bit so it brings through that stain, you can, so you can see how it brings out that edging through the white. So if you want to do that, just sand a little harder on the edges. There you go. And then just kind of set that aside. It's done. And get yourself a clean area. So dispose of whatever you were working on. And next comes your bag of goodies. So in there you're going to have 3 different strings. This string here is for hanging. This one is for tying on this little tag. And then you're going to have a really long one that's coiled up here, and then your 2 pieces of ribbon. So what you're going to do, I am not one, oh, and a zip tie. So I'm not a really big bow maker, so I kind of just fake it here. So this is how I tied the bow. So what I did is I crossed over in the front a little bit and had a really big loop. I pull from the center so that it looks like it's folded there, so it's all nice and flat. I kind of do this in my hands. Okay, just kind of bring it in. So you got 2 loops here, and then just pinch it in the center. So it kind of looks like a little bow tie kind of thing, and you're gonna have to hold that. Okay, and while you're holding that, you have to do the exact same thing to this one. So cross them in the front, take the loop in the back, push it to the center, and then pucker these up. So you've got 2 that are exactly the same. Okay, hopefully you can see that. And what you're gonna do is you're going to layer them. Make sure their loops look fairly even on both ones, because once you zip tie them, they're a little harder to pull apart. So then you're gonna take your zip tie, and I do I take it from the front and then I take it to the back, and so that way your big zip tie end is at the back when we're done this. So feed that through, and make sure when you're feeding it, don't let go of anything. It will help pinch it more once we get there, but make sure it's kind of centered, because you're gonna want, this is my front, this is my back. And with the other hand, or if you've got someone here or someone close by, then you can get them to help you. But I'm making sure that I've got it centered on my bow there. And then you can lay it down and pull. So there's your pucker, okay? So if you're a little crooked, well, not much, but there, okay? Whoops. So now you can kind of just pucker that up like that and fluff out that. We don't have a whole lot of loops to play with. But at the bottom, you're going to you're going to cut those tails. Okay, so you can do the tails however you like. On this particular one, I just came in and angled them like this. I mean, you can always fold it in half and angle that way. You can do it however you like. Just make sure whatever you do on one side, you angle the opposite on the other side, and you don't cut your loop there. So make sure that stays out of the way. Just do this one. I probably could have made those loops in the back, whoops, a little bit smaller, but you can kind of play with it a bit, because once we're done, we're gonna hot glue it here anyway. So, and then you can play with it there. So what you're gonna do once you've zip tied this and you've twisted this to the back, you want to, oops. You just fluff these out however you want. There you go. Then you're going to cut that off, because we're going to need to wrap the string around that so we can hide that zip tie, because we don't like it. Okay, so now take your string. I gotta try to remember how I did this. Did I fold it in half? No. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to start with the short tail at one end, so that way you have something to tie with. And then just take this one and go around. And you may have to turn it over after you get started and make sure you're getting it fairly even. But you just go around as many loops as you want. I gave you quite a bit of string, so I had gone through a few times when I did the other ones, so. But I never did count, so I just cut you guys a long piece. So I'm thinking I'm okay with that. So once you're good, then you're going to come back to the other side and take that short end and that long end and then tie a knot. I'm trying to do it in the center here. There you go. Okay. So make sure you're happy with what it looks like before you go cut it, because you can always untie it and do it again. So, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm good with that. And so then just go and cut that off. So now you have just a short ender. I guess I can cut that shorter. There we go. All right, so then, I mean, now you've got two long pieces, unless you used it all. So I guess you can figure out if you have a long piece left from that, you can figure out which one you want to use. But this is an 18-inch one that we used for all the other hanging things that we do. So, okay, so we'll put that off to the side. Eventually you will need a hot glue gun, but we are going to just tie this on first. So this one, you're gonna tie a knot at that end. And I can't remember if I did two. No, this one's fine. So tie a knot at one end, feed it through the tag, and make sure it's not gonna go through. And then feed this one through that hole. Now, if you're having a hard time getting the string to go through the hole, you can always put a little piece of tape at the end. But there we go. So once you get that in there, you can flip this over and you can tie another knot. You want to try and tie it as close as you can, so that it doesn't wiggle up at the front. Now you might want to tie that a couple times, just so it has a big knot at the back. There you go. And before you cut it off, come to the front and make sure you're happy with that. So I'm good to go. So I'm just going to trim this a little bit so it looks a little nicer. There we go. And then you can come to the back and do the same thing. I mean, if you wanted, you can always put some glue there or whatever if you wanted to just leave that, but otherwise just cut it off. Okay. So the next part that will be easier is to tie your string on for hanging before you put your bow on, because sometimes that bow gets in the way for this. Okay, so what I did is I came in from the back and just brought a little bit out the front, just enough to tie a knot up at the top, like this. There we go. So I've got this little end, and I'm going to take this, come back on the other side, and do the same thing. But you want to watch when you're tying the other side that you bring your loop here. Let me do this. Okay, do your first tie over. Okay, now this time, instead of bringing your loop over, you're going to bring it under. Like you're going to come from the back, bring it under that string, and then pull your loop through. That way your string end will shoot out the back like the other side and not stick out the front. All right. See, now I know it doesn't hang very high like your other ones do, but this is long and you don't want it to hang super low. So if once you're good with that, you can always trim those little pieces off. And I will do that in a minute. Just make sure that you're all good with that. Okay, when it comes to this, I forgot something. Here we go. You're also going to have your little bag of greenery. And cut that open. Now in here, you will have 2 little black ties. I'm just gonna move this now for a second. 2 little black ties, and you'll have 6 pieces. Okay, so what I did is take them and at the bottom kind of make them even, and take one of the ties and wrap it around like you were tying hair. Okay. Oops. All right, just, oops, is that tight enough? There we go. Just enough to keep them together there. And then repeat on the other side. Okay, it's about 4 or 5 times around. And you kind of, you know, fan them out, make sure you like how they lay, because once we get that on the board, that's kind of how they will be. Okay, so now when you're doing this, I kind of glued my bow in that area there. So I kind of will want to lay out my greenery in that area. So you can kind of just play and see how you like how it looks before you start committing with some hot glue. I think I overlap these a bit more. And sometimes they'll curl under and over, so just kind of watch how you like that. Okay, and let's see. Yeah, so you'll want a little bit to stick out on the sides, and we'll hide all that once we get that going here. Okay, so you're gonna wanna get your hot glue gun. So I had to go back to my sample piece because it's been a couple weeks. So what I did is I will glue my ribbon on first, and I did go back to my other one, and I did make my tails a little longer and my bow loops not quite as big. So when you're doing this, you can always shift those down. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. That's just how my sample was, and this one's cute too. So you can't get too fussy under that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna glue my bow on first, and then I'm gonna come in after and tuck those in, because I don't want them right underneath this. Otherwise, that's a lot of stuff right underneath that mound of string and stuff. And then we'll just stick these in on the side, and then that way you see more of the greenery. So I'm just gonna give this a few minutes to warm up, and then I will come back and we will continue on, okay? Okay, I'm back. I think it's getting there, so I should be able to do this. So remove those. Find your spot. I'm actually gonna put glue on the back of my, oh, I lied, it's not quite ready. Nope, okay, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I think it's ready now. All right, so take your glue gun. Now this one's a really high temp gun, so it takes a little longer to dry, and it's extremely hot. So whatever glue you have, just be careful. So lay that on, and I can see I've got it end sticking out here, so we're just going to tuck that in. You don't want to go super crazy so that you see a bunch of glue squeeze out. So whatever works best for you, just whether it's, you know, put it on the board or on the back of your ribbon, just be careful how much is going to show after, like me on this one. He's not too bad, except it's really, really hot. There we go. Okay, that part's good. Now, with the high temp gun, you have to be careful because it will melt these very, very easily. So you want to get a little bit, make sure this is set really well. I'm gonna give it just another minute. And then I would put, I know when I did my first ones, that's why I know it's actually gonna melt more of that little hairband than anything. So whether you end up coming to put them in separately, or you're just are very careful where you put the glue. I might just move that hairband up just a little bit higher. But I mean, if you do melt it, then you know, you just put them in separately. I just like the cluster because then it's a little bit more stable there, but if you've glued them to the board very well, then you should be fine. Okay, so I'm just gonna fold this back. So like I said, you can do this two ways. You can put a little glue on here and tuck it under here. Just make sure you know how you want it before you even get there. So make sure you figure out which way you want them. Do you like it hanging that way or this way? I think I like mine more that way, so I'm gonna put, I don't know, do I wanna do it that way? Okay, so I'm gonna put just a dab of glue here, and then I'm gonna set these on, and then I'm gonna fold this back and press on it, just so I don't have to use my fingers. But make sure you really get it under there. You can always move these greenery after, but you just don't want to glue your ribbon down, so just make sure it can still. Okay, I'm just gonna leave that, because if it's hot, it takes a little longer to set, and if you pull at it, then it'll move. So let's go to this side and do the same thing. See how you like it? Yeah, I like it there. So I'm just gonna put a spot of glue and tuck these under, and then give it a press from the top here. And then just give that a moment to cool, and then we'll come back and we'll just kind of fluff these all out, okay? See you soon. Okay, I am back. Let's check this. Okay, that looks good. I'm not gonna pull on it. If you have any little glue tails or strings, you can kind of just pull at them, and then just gently move your greenery around like you like, and then just fluff out your bow. There's a little bit of wire in it, so you can kind of, at least the back ones do. The front ones not so much, but the back ones help push that front one up. And then just come back here and just move that around, and then you are all done. Just like that, and then you can go and hang it. You can hang it on, we did ours on our stand. You can hang it on your wall. You can hang it on your door. I would say more inside your door, not outside your door, but either way you can display it wherever you like. Even if you didn't want to hang it, you could just lean it up against something as well. So I hope you enjoyed this project for Christmas in July. We did give you guys a little bonus. There is no video for it, but with everything I've taught you guys in the past, you should be able to know how to paint that, and enjoy that little project for Christmas. All right, well, we'll see you guys again next month. Thank you everyone who joined this month, and have a happy Canada Day.